Mark, engage at will.
Rockheads at 1 o'clock. 2 clicks. Using overcharge. Engage.
The UEF, Cyberns, and Illuminate are at it again in Supreme Commander 2. But things aren't exactly as you remember them. There have been some important changes to the SUBCOM formula, but if you're a fan of the original, don't sweat it too much. This sequel is a blast. Supreme Commander 2 is as broad and complex as you'd want it to be, but it's also friendly and welcoming too. It boasts a more colorful art design and a cleaner interface, and the game runs as smooth as warm butter, so you don't need a supercomputer to run it. The problems are noticeable. The AI is on the predictable side, and pathfinding problems are an occasional headache. But even though SUBCOM 2 doesn't have the cerebral edge of the original, it's still really slick, really big, and really enjoyable. It's hard not to notice one of the biggest differences over the original right away. Supreme Commander 2 is not the technical powerhouse the original was. Textures aren't as crisp and lighting and shadows aren't as detailed, so don't expect to use this game to test the limits of your system. What you get instead is silky smooth performance with hardly a hiccup, even when you're zooming in and out from extreme close-ups to the godlike view that lets you take in the entire battlefield at once.
You got nothing on me, kid!
The art design is also noticeably different. There's a more distinct sense of place, and the way some maps are superimposed on lovely backgrounds might remind you of Gas-Powered Games' last strategy title, Demigod. The character models you see in cutscenes and during mission updates seem a bit cartoonish, as is some of the voice acting.
I don't know.
What did you and George do yesterday?
Still, SUBCOM 2 has a distinct visual identity that prizes performance and personality over polygons. Other differences are more apparent the more you play. If you're a SUBCOM veteran, you might at first be saddened at changes to the economic and building models and other streamlined elements. For example, the 3 tiers of units have been abolished. Instead, you upgrade the units you have and unlock additional ones by spending research points. But while playability has been enhanced, the flexibility and scope of combat hasn't suffered. You've still got all the varied units and strategic opportunities you'd hope for, letting you spread around the map as you like and keeping you busy on multiple fronts. Turtle up and hide under an array of shields, bombard enemy bases with long-range artillery, or set up massive air patrol routes to keep your opponent's hands full. Set your engineers to patrol in order to repair injured units and collect mass from destroyed units. Use mobile shield generators to protect control groups. Build and launch powerful nukes. And do it all on typically massive maps where you can get up close and personal, or zoom into the heavens to get a strategic view of the entire battlefield. So the details have changed a bit, but the moment-to-moment gameplay should be more or less familiar to SUBCOM fans. The 3 factions boast some familiar units too, and some of the fun experimental units have returned as well, though some, like the UEF Fat Boy, aren't exactly as you remember them. But that matters little, since it's a blast to unleash them in battle. Some, like the UEF's gigantic King Cryptor robot, are offensive powerhouses. Others offer different types of strategic value, from a cannon that builds and shoots units across the map, to a giant beam that converts enemy units to your cause. It just makes for a lot of fun, both in the campaign and in multiplayer. If you're looking for the challenge with the original, you may want to crank up the difficulty for the first 2/3 of the campaign. The predictable AI isn't likely to push you too hard on medium until the last missions. Of course, the real challenge comes from human opponents, and there are plenty of maps available for you. Online matches are just as smooth and trouble-free as the campaign, and the factions seem really well balanced. And gone is the GPGNet interface, replaced instead by an in-game interface that gets the job done with a minimum of fuss. There are a few interface quirks to get used to. For example, scrolling across the map once you've selected a structure to build drops the building from your cursor. But the only quirk likely to irritate you is the troublesome pathfinding. Sometimes groups will do interpretive dances, have difficulty navigating through not-so-tight spaces, and get stuck in the strangest places and jitter around. Some of these moments require a touch of micromanagement. If your ACU gets stuck between structures, though, you'll have to just grin and bear it. These moments aren't that frequent, but they're still annoying. But in spite of a few flaws, Supreme Commander 2 is great. and it pleasantly bridges the gap between complexity and accessibility. It's a good mix that makes for a lot of fun whether you're an RTS freak or you're usually daunted by grand massive strategy. And fun is something you can never get enough of.